Hey guys, John V here from Phone Reno. Right now you're watching our in-depth video comparison between the Apple iPhone 5S and the Samsung Galaxy S4. It's the battle of the flagships, the best from Apple and the best from Samsung's camp. There's a lot to like about these two high-end devices, seeing that they're filled to the top with some dreamy specs, and on top of that, you know they're going to be competing against one another head-on in this upcoming holiday season. So let's just jump right in and find out exactly which device is going to reign supreme. This should actually look somewhat familiar just because the iPhone 5S employs the same design as its predecessor in the iPhone 5, so it has that iconic iPhone look. Now when we think about a high-end flagship smartphone, it's the iPhone 5S that exudes all the qualities that we'd want to find in the device. For starters, it has that premium element with its brushed aluminum casing. It just has also that sturdier construction versus the plastic construction of the Galaxy S4. The Galaxy S4 is very lightweight for a device of its size, and when we think about the size, the iPhone 5S again is just more form-fitting in the hand, whereas the Galaxy S4 is just one beastly of a thing. Obviously, these two high-end devices are blessed with some fantastic looking displays. 4-inch Retina display on the iPhone 5S versus the larger 5-inch 1080p Super AMOLED display on the Galaxy S4. Now on paper, the Galaxy S4 has the advantage when it comes to pixel density count, but when you're looking from a far distance away or normal viewing distance, you're not going to notice a difference unless you actually look at them very close. That's when we notice the superiority of the Galaxy S4's display. Now, they both rely on two totally separate technologies. You have IPS LCD technology in the iPhone 5S versus Super AMOLED on the Galaxy S4. The Galaxy S4 really stands out for its oversaturated color reproduction, very rich, so it has that showroom wow factor. Whereas with the iPhone 5S, it has the more realistic color tones and also superior outdoor visibility, so it doesn't wash out like the Galaxy S4. They have their pleasing elements, but when overall, we're going to give it slightly to the Galaxy S4 just because of the larger display, higher resolution, and that of course that showroom wow factor with its saturated colors. So below their displays, we find their respective home buttons. They have very springy responses and more than tactile. With the iPhone 5S though, it doubles for a fingerprint sensor so you can unlock the device, which is pretty neat. And with the Galaxy S4, it's surrounded by its capacitive back and menu keys. Meanwhile, above the displays, we find their earpieces, their light and proximity sensors, and front-facing cameras. On the iPhone 5S, it's a 1.2 megapixel one, which has the ability to shoot video in 720p. And on the Galaxy S4, it's a slightly larger 2 megapixel one, which has the ability to shoot 1080p videos. The other neat thing about the Galaxy S4 is that it also incorporates a very useful LED notification light. Taking a look around the sides of both handsets, we're going to find the same set of buttons. So on the left edge, we have their volume controls. It's a single narrow piece on the Galaxy S4 versus the separated circular buttons on the iPhone 5S. Now, we actually find it more distinctive with the iPhone 5S's buttons, but luckily they're both very responsive. With their power buttons, they're located in different areas. So it's on the top edge with the iPhone 5S versus on the right side on the Galaxy S4. Again, it's a lot more pronounced with the iPhone 5S, but luckily the responses are still nice and tactile on both. On the road, the micro USB port of the Galaxy S4 is a lot more favorable just because you're bound to find someone who also has the same type of connection with their device. Whereas with the iPhone 5S, it relies on Apple's proprietary Lightning docking port. In the rear, we have the respective cameras. It's an 8 megapixel iSight camera in the iPhone 5S, which features 1080p video recording quality. You have 1.5 micro-sized pixels. You have an f2.2 lens and a dual LED flash, one amber, one white, to produce more natural skin tones. And on the Galaxy S4, it's a beefier 13 megapixel autofocus camera with an LED flash, and it features also 1080p high definition video recording quality, an f2.2 lens, and a backside illuminated sensor. It's something that we continue to find very useful and appreciated with the Galaxy S4. It features a removable back cover, so we gain access to its internal battery, but better yet, it also offers memory expandability via its micro SD card slot, so you could supplement its internal capacity, whereas with the iPhone 5S, there's no option for that. You gotta stick with what's on board, either 16, 32, or 64 gigabytes. So with the introduction of iOS 7 on the iPhone 5S, we're going to give the iPhone 5S for having the more visually pleasing user interface. Not bad with the Samsung Galaxy S4 and its Android Jelly Bean with TouchWiz user interface, but there's just a lot more cool animations and visual effects that give a lot of eye candy to the new iOS 7 experience. So you get more simplicity out of the iOS 7 experience, just easy to use, and it's not as complex compared to the TouchWiz interface on the Samsung Galaxy S4. But again, being an Android smartphone, it benefits from a host of personalization options. You get all the neat widgets, very useful too, different wallpapers, and there's a lot more complexity in the way you actually change up the looks and feel of the platform on the Galaxy S4. It's wonderful that both handsets have a centralized location for all notifications, and they're handled in the same manner. You just swipe from the top bezel down, and from here we gain access to a lot of useful things. But between them, we're going to say that Android's implementation on the Galaxy S4 is better than what's on the iPhone 5S, just because you have more functionality. For example, when you get an email, you can also archive it, whereas with the iPhone 5S, you don't have that option. And you can tell here with the Galaxy S4, you have access to some useful connectivity features and adjusting brightness setting directly from there, whereas in the iPhone 5S, it's still accessed by just doing a swipe up from the bottom bezel, and you gain access to Control Center, and you get pretty much the same functionality. On the surface, the multitasking functions handled in the same manner with both handsets, so it's nice that they work. So on the iPhone 5S, double tap the home button, you're going to get a small preview of all the open applications, and you quickly jump between any one of them. Same thing applies with Android. Just hold the home button on the Galaxy S4 and you could switch again to it. So it's nice, but we're going to say that there's a little bit more options with the Galaxy S4 that we prefer. For example, not only that, but you could easily close out all the applications by actually pressing the button down here in the bottom right corner, whereas with the iPhone 5S, you have to actually swipe using 3 fingers or just one at a time, but it just seems like a little bit more of a tedious process on here. And another thing worth pointing out is the multi-window support with the Galaxy S4. It's very useful because you could actually have 2 applications loaded at the same time on top of one another. So for example, you could be on Twitter, and of course you could be also using YouTube at the same time. So it's really neat to have this functionality. That's something that you don't find with the iPhone 5S. So yeah, both handsets feature their own unique voice assistant services. You have Siri on the iPhone 5S, then you have Google Now and the S-Voice application on the Galaxy S4. Now, we actually prefer the Galaxy S4 this one just because with Google Now, you have a lot more functionality and it just knows what you're doing. So it gives us normal things like the weather. In addition, you can tell us the directions and even our flight information as well, and it does it all by itself. Now, with the introduction of iOS 7 though, on the iPhone 5S, Siri gains a more human-like voice, whereas before it was more robotic, and they both work fairly accurately. So we're going to test it out right here for you so you can see the difference between the two here. What's the weather like?
It's 67 degrees and overcast in Jersey City. Looks like nice weather coming up between today and Tuesday. Up to 75 degrees Fahrenheit.
Under the hood of both handsets, they pack some very sweet processors. On the iPhone 5S, it has a one-of-a-kind dual-core 1.3 GHz Apple A7 processor, which is based on 64-bit architecture, something we haven't seen in the mobile space before. While on the Galaxy S4, it packs a 1.9 GHz quad-core Qualcomm Snapdragon 600 processor with 2 GB of RAM. Now, both are pretty sweet processors, but we're going to give the overall performance to the iPhone 5S. It's just by far more responsive and instantaneous with its operations. Every now and then we'll see just a little bit of lag or some choppiness with the Galaxy S4, but it's still a very fast handset. When it comes to the total set of features with the platform experience, there's no question about it, the Galaxy S4 outclasses the iPhone 5S in this category. So with the 5S, the most unique thing is just the biometric Touch ID fingerprint sensor below the display. So it's pretty easy actually unlocking the device with your finger. So it's just like that. It's also used to confirm app purchases too. Now with the Galaxy S4, there's just a ton more options available to it. So we're gonna just list some of the favorite ones we like. For example, you have all the air gestures in play with the device. There's an IR blaster on the front. So basically you could use it to actually scroll between your photos, or in the web browser, you could also scroll up and down. You could also hold with two fingers, and you could zoom in, zoom out by just tilting the device up and down. And of course, you could pan as well in a shot, which is pretty neat. You have also with the web browser the scrolling functionality with your eyes. So instead of just using your finger to actually scroll up and down, it'll actually move accordingly depending on how you tilt the device up and down and where you're looking as well. So it might be seen as a novel feature, but it works for some people. And finally, you have also the air view functionality where it tracks your finger over the display as you hover it. And that's useful in many different things like the web browser, but you could actually zoom in certain aspects, and in the gallery, you could get previews of certain things as well. Obviously, you get a more spacious keyboard layout with the Galaxy S4. You can see the difference between the two. So if you have larger hands, you're going to appreciate the Galaxy S4 more than the iPhone 5S. But both work in the end. They're very responsive. Just depends on what you like. It's just very simple and easy to use on the iPhone 5S. And the neat thing about the Galaxy S4 is that we have access to a ton of different things, like a dedicated row for numbers and easy access to some punctuations as well. At the end of the day, these two smartphones work when it comes to surfing the web just because you get 4G LTE connectivity with both, so you get fast page loads. And on top of that, navigational controls are tight and responsive, so no problems whatsoever. But we'd go with the Galaxy S4 just because it has a more ideal experience with its larger and higher resolution display, so you get to see more. And again, you have some additional functionalities such as being able to scroll up and down with our hands using air gestures. And finally, you could also scroll via your eyes. There's actually not one music player that we prefer more than the other, just because their interfaces look rather conventional and almost identical at times. So with the iPhone 5S, you have the updated music player thanks to iOS 7, and the Galaxy S4 has two options. You can go either with a TouchWiz music player or the Google Play music application. Now, when it comes to the audio quality with the respective speakers, when we set them to their loudest volume setting, we do notice that the iPhone 5S emits slightly stronger tones than the Galaxy S4, but both are still very loud. We're going to have to go with the Galaxy S4 when it comes to watching high-definition videos, just because you get the more ideal experience with it. And on top of that, it offers a lot more support with different codecs out of the box, whereas with the iPhone 5S, you're going to have to convert videos before you get them on. And on top of that, seeing with that larger display, it just makes it more ideal for our eyes. And you get some other neat functions, such as preview of the timeline using the air view functionality, and on top of that you have pop-up play, so you could actually layer the video on top of something else for better multitasking. Here's the camera UI in both handsets. Now you can tell the majority of space is mainly reserved for the viewfinder, but that's pretty much where the similarities end, just because with the Galaxy S4, you're going to get a lot more shooting modes available with it. So you have things like sound and shot, panoramic, drama, sports, just a host of very neat and very cool ones as well. And on top of that, it also features a lot more manual controls over the iPhone 5S. The 5S actually doesn't have any, so you can adjust things like the ISO, the white balance, and even the exposure, so you have a lot more control. With the iPhone 5S though, it's just more of a simplified user interface. You have things like these color modes available to it, and you also have a square option for things like Instagram. HDR modes available as well. But the neat thing about it is that we actually prefer the slow motion video capture function on the iPhone 5S, just because it has the ability to actually set the slow motion after you take the shot. We know that the iPhone 5S gets an updated camera, so it now packs along an 8 megapixel iSight camera, which features an f2.2 aperture lens, larger size pixels, and a backside illuminated sensor. In contrast, the Samsung Galaxy S4 has a beefier 8 megapixel autofocus camera, which also features a backside illuminated sensor and an f2.2 lens. Now, when it comes to overall quality, we would probably give it slightly to the Galaxy S4, but not by much, just because with outdoor shots where lighting is plentiful, you're hardly going to notice the difference between the qualities between the two, just because it takes some stunning looking photos. But when it comes to raw details, it's the Samsung Galaxy S4 that nudges out the iPhone 5S by just a little bit. And quite honestly, you're not going to notice the difference unless you look at the images very close to your eyes. Beyond that, when it comes to color reproduction, you get slightly more punchier tones with the Galaxy S4, but the iPhone 5S really shows its worth when it comes to lower lighting situations. It just handles it a lot better just because it's less noisy, and details are significantly drawn out more versus the versus the Galaxy S4. And overall, the shots come out brighter. And on top of that, the LED flash also works better in producing more natural skin tones. Additionally, the same qualities persist with their 1080p high-definition video recording quality, so there's a lot to like about both devices in this category, and quite frankly, we like using both for the occasion. It just takes some stunning-looking videos. There's a lot of good details, super sharp. Color reproduction is nice and balanced. What would give it to the Galaxy S4 just by a little bit more, just because it just comes out to be a little bit more robust. They both have some gradual exposure, so it's never jittery. But the other neat thing about the Galaxy S4 is that it features continuous autofocus, whereas with the iPhone 5S, it only has touch focus, so you gotta keep on adjusting that. With call quality, we're gonna go with the iPhone 5S on this one, just because with the earpiece, voices just have a more distinctive and natural tone versus the more mute tones put out by the Galaxy S4, but luckily, the volumes of both their earpieces and speakerphones are very powerful. Generally speaking, battery life is nothing more than average with these two high-end smartphones. That's just because we're able to get through a solid day of normal usage at a fully charged battery, so we don't necessarily find one to really outclass the other in this category. It's always tough making a concrete decision, especially when these two handsets really perform on the same level in various aspects. Now, they're both priced at $200 with a 2-year contract, but when you think about feature set and the hardware, it would seem as though that the Galaxy S4 continues to offer more bang for the buck when you think about its higher resolution and even larger display with all the features of the TouchWiz Nature UX experience. It seems like it's going to offer more functionality than the iPhone 5S. But on the opposite end of the spectrum, the 5S still has that premium build quality and the simplicity of the iOS 7 experience, and it comes forth with some new goodies. For example, the Touch ID fingerprint sensor, the 64-bit base processor in the A7, and a host of other things that continues to make it a standout offering. So it's going to be a really tough call if you're more about the feature set, the bigger specs, bigger phone. Of course, the Galaxy S4, if you prefer simplicity with a premium build quality and a well-rounded performance, you want to stick with the iPhone 5S. So if you guys want to learn more about either the Apple iPhone 5S or the Samsung Galaxy S4, you can check out our website, phonearena.com. This is John V. Thanks for watching.